A strange birth took place in a farmer's barn. It was a 1 in 10,000 event, and when the farmer saw what it was, he screamed. But more than that, it set a series of events in motion that changed everything about his life. Ethan jolted awake in the dead of night. The barn outside was alive with strange noises, an unsettling mix of whinnies and thuds. His pulse quickened as he threw on his coat and bolted outside. The cold night air stung his face, but he barely noticed. He reached the barn and pushed open the heavy doors. Inside, Emma, his prized mare, was in distress. She was sweating, and her eyes were wide with pain and fear. Ethan's gut twisted as he realized she was in labor. This wasn't supposed to happen for weeks. The noises, the timing, it was all wrong, and he hated that his favorite horse was going through such a scary ordeal with no professional by her side. Emma was a majestic mare with a glossy chestnut coat and a gentle spirit. Ethan had raised her from a foal. He'd nurtured her through every scrape and sickness. Now, standing beside her, he felt a mix of fear and helplessness. She was in pain, and he didn't know how to ease it. He grabbed his phone and dialed Dr. Nicola Jarvis, the local vet. "Stay calm, Ethan," she said. "I'm not in town, but I'll be there as soon as I can. It will probably take a day or two. In the meantime, keep her comfortable, talk to her, keep her calm. She knows what to do." Ethan put the phone down and turned back to Emma. "It's okay, girl," he whispered while stroking her neck. "You're going to be all right. Just breathe." Emma's breathing was more labored now. Ethan felt a surge of panic but pushed it down. He fetched clean towels and a bucket of warm water but didn't know what else to do. Emma's contractions grew more intense. He stayed by her side, wiped her sweat, and murmured words of encouragement. Just when he thought he couldn't bear it any longer, he saw the first signs of the foal. With a final powerful contraction, the foal emerged. Ethan's breath caught in his throat. It was a colt. It was wet and trembling, but very much alive. He quickly wrapped the foal in a towel and rubbed it vigorously to stimulate its breathing. The colt's chest rose and fell with a tiny, fragile rhythm. "Will," Ethan whispered. "Welcome to the world, little one. Your name is Will." His relief was short-lived. Emma was still restless. Then, to his utter shock, Ethan saw another pair of tiny hooves. He screamed loudly, unable to help himself. "No way, Emma, you're having twins." He had heard of twin foals before, but they were incredibly rare and often didn't survive. Panic clawed at him, but he focused on Emma. The second birth was as arduous as the first. After what felt like an eternity, the second foal slid into the world. Ethan's hands trembled as he wrapped the tiny creature in another towel. This one was a filly, smaller and more delicate than her brother. "Grace," he breathed, his voice choked with emotion. "Your name is Grace because you're a miracle." Twin foals are an extraordinary rarity in the world of horse breeding. The odds of both twins surviving are estimated to be 1 in 10,000. Most twin pregnancies in horses end in abortion or the death of one or both foals. It's a harsh reality of nature where survival is often a matter of sheer luck and timing. Emma's successful delivery of Will and Grace was nothing short of a miracle. Ethan knew the statistics all too well. Dr. Nicola Jarvis arrived a day later. She had a calm, reassuring presence that immediately put Ethan at ease. She examined the twins thoroughly. "They're doing remarkably well," Nicola said. "They'll need round-the-clock care, especially in the first few weeks. Make sure they're nursing well and staying hydrated. Watch for any signs of weakness or illness. I'll be here to help you every step of the way." Ethan followed Nicola's instructions to the letter. He became a tireless guardian. He ensured that Emma had ample food and water to produce enough milk for the twins. He monitored their weight daily and noted every gain and loss with meticulous precision. He adjusted the barn's temperature to keep them warm and comfortable, aware that even a slight chill could be dangerous. As the weeks passed, the foals grew stronger. They were beating the odds, defying expectations, and proving that miracles could happen, even on a small farm in California. Late one afternoon, Ethan noticed a figure approaching from a distance. It was a tall, thin man dressed in a long coat and hat. He was making his way down the dirt path towards the barn. Ethan's first instinct was to be cautious. Unexpected visitors were rare, and he couldn't afford any disruptions. As the man drew closer, Ethan stepped forward and blocked the entrance to the barn. He asked if he could help the stranger. The man removed his hat to reveal sharp features and piercing blue eyes. "I'm looking for Ethan," he said. "I have some information that might be of interest to you." Ethan narrowed his eyes. The stranger glanced around as if to ensure they were alone. "My name is Victor. I've heard about your recent additions, the twin foals. You must understand, their birth is not just rare, it's extraordinary." Ethan felt a chill run down his spine. Victor stepped closer and lowered his voice. "Twin foals are almost unheard of, and their survival is a miracle. But there's more to it than just rarity. There's something special about them, something valuable." Ethan's unease grew. Victor looked him straight in the eyes. "There are those who would go to great lengths to get their hands on such foals, people who see them as more than just animals, but as a key to unlocking something greater." Ethan's heart pounded. Victor hesitated, then continued, "There is a group of elite horse breeders. They're obsessed with improving bloodlines and achieving perfection in their racehorse stock. They've been searching for foals like yours for years. They believe twins possess a unique genetic trait that could revolutionize horse breeding." Ethan's mind raced. Victor sighed. "I was once part of that world. I know what they're capable of. I'm telling you this because you need to be prepared. They will come for your foals, and they won't take no for an answer." Ethan watched Victor walk away until he disappeared into the twilight. He felt a knot of anxiety tighten in his stomach. The peaceful life he had known was now overshadowed by uncertainty and potential danger. The days following Victor's visit were anything but ordinary. Ethan's once peaceful farm was now a place of unease and suspicion. It started with small things: tools going missing, strange noises in the middle of the night, and the feeling of being watched. Ethan couldn't shake the sense that something was terribly wrong. One morning, he found his toolbox empty. He distinctly remembered placing it on the workbench the night before. Puzzled, he searched the barn and the surrounding area, but found nothing. His frustration grew when he noticed footprints in the mud near the barn, footprints that weren't his. Then there were the noises. At first, they were barely audible, soft whispers of sound that could easily be dismissed as the wind. But as days passed, the noises grew louder and more distinct. Thumps and rustling in the dark hours of the night kept Ethan on edge. He spent sleepless nights patrolling the barn with his flashlight in hand, ready to confront whatever was causing the disturbances. One evening, while checking on the foals, he noticed something odd. Will was standing near the barn door, pawing at the ground. Ethan approached and saw a small, shiny object partially buried in the dirt. He picked it up. It was a tiny, high-tech listening device. His blood ran cold. Victor's warnings echoed in his mind. The breeders, they were watching him, listening to him. His paranoia wasn't unfounded. This was real. Determined to protect his foals, Ethan took the device inside and smashed it with a hammer. He had to be more vigilant than ever. One night, he found the barn gate wide open, even though he was sure he had locked it. Another time, he discovered strange symbols carved into a tree near the pasture. Each incident heightened his anxiety and steeled his resolve. The breaking point came when he discovered a note pinned to the barn door. The message was simple yet chilling. "We're closer than you think." Ethan's hands trembled as he read it. The threat was real, and it was closing in. He knew he couldn't do it alone. He called Nicola and explained everything he had discovered. The vet was shocked but agreed to help. She offered to stay at the farm to provide both medical expertise and an extra set of eyes. With Nicola's help, Ethan felt a glimmer of hope. They devised a plan to safeguard the foals and contacted the local authorities to report the intrusions and the strange happenings. Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that he was missing something crucial about Emma and her twins. His mind raced as he thought about the stranger's warnings and the mysterious events that had plagued the farm. Determined to uncover the truth, he began digging through old records and documents about the mare's lineage. While sifting through a dusty box of papers held something that made his heart skip a beat. It was a letter from Emma's previous owner, a renowned horse breeder named Charles Remington. The letter detailed her pedigree and mentioned a secret breeding program aimed at producing genetically superior horses. Ethan read on, his eyes widening as he absorbed the information. Emma was not just any mare, she was part of an experimental line known for their exceptional strength, speed, and intelligence. The implications were staggering. If Emma was part of this elite bloodline, then her twins, Will and Grace, might possess even more extraordinary traits. The breeder's interest in the foals suddenly made sense. They weren't just rare, they were potentially revolutionary. As Ethan pondered this revelation, he heard a familiar voice behind him. "I see you found some interesting information." He turned to see Victor standing in the doorway. The man raised his hands in a placating gesture. "I'm not here to harm you or your foals. I have more information you need to hear." Ethan hesitated but nodded. Victor stepped forward. Emma's twins might possess a unique genetic trait that makes them highly valuable to the breeders. She was strong, fast, and gorgeous, and they are her spitting image. So they believe these foals have the potential to transform horse breeding as we know it. Ethan's stomach churned. The implications were enormous. If what Victor said was true, the twins were more than just rare, they were a breakthrough. He asked Victor why he should trust him. Victor met his gaze. "Because I know what they're capable of. They'll stop at nothing to get those foals. I couldn't live with myself if I didn't warn you. I left that world behind because I believe that animals should not be treated as commodities." Later, Ethan sat in the barn, the weight of his discoveries pressing heavily on his shoulders. As he watched Will and Grace frolic under Emma's watchful eye, he couldn't shake the feeling that time was running out. He needed answers, and he needed them fast. The next morning, he decided to confront Victor directly. He left Nicola with the horses and drove to the address Victor had provided. It was a small, unassuming cabin on the outskirts of town. "Ethan," Victor said when he opened the door, "I figured you'd come." Ethan didn't waste time on pleasantries. He made it clear he needed to know everything, starting with who Victor was and why he was trying to help. Victor sighed and gestured for Ethan to follow him inside. The cabin was sparse but tidy, with a few personal touches that hinted at a life left behind. "My real name is Victor Stone," he said. "I was once a prominent member of a secretive group of elite horse breeders dedicated to creating the perfect racehorse. We believed in the power of genetics and pursued it relentlessly." Ethan listened intently as the pieces of the puzzle started to fall into place. Victor continued, "We operated in the shadows. Our experiments often crossed ethical lines, but we justified it by the results. Champion racehorses with unmatched speed and endurance." Victor's expression changed. "I couldn't stomach the lengths they were willing to go. When I learned about the potential of foals like Will and Grace, I knew they'd stop at nothing to obtain them. I couldn't be part of it anymore." Ethan's mind raced. The breeder's interest in rare horse genetics to improve their racehorse stock meant his foals were in grave danger. Victor said, "You have to understand, Ethan, they believe that Will and Grace possess genetic traits that could make them the pinnacle of equine evolution. They want them more than anything. I'll help you protect them as best I can because I don't want to see them turn into breeding machines." As Ethan shook Victor's hand, he felt a strange sense of relief. He wasn't alone in this fight. With Victor's insider knowledge and connections, he had a fighting chance. The tension on the farm was palpable. Ethan and Victor worked tirelessly to fortify the barn and keep the foals hidden. Despite their efforts, Ethan knew it was only a matter of time before the breeders made their move. That fateful day arrived sooner than he had expected. It was late afternoon when Ethan noticed several black SUVs approaching the farm. His heart pounded as he ran to the barn to alert Victor. Victor's face hardened. "Stay with the foals. I'll handle this," he said as he stepped out to confront the intruders. There were 5 men in dark suits, their expressions cold and calculating. "We know what you're hiding here, Stone," the leader said, his voice dripping with menace. "Hand over the foals, and no one gets hurt." Victor squared his shoulders and said simply, "There is no way you're taking the horses." The leader's eyes narrowed. "You're a traitor, Stone. You know what those foals represent. This isn't about one farmer's attachment to his animals, it's about the future of horse breeding." As the standoff intensified, another figure emerged from the shadows. To Ethan's shock, it was Dr. Nicola Jarvis. She approached the group with an air of authority and asked what was going on. The leader sneered, "Stay out of this, Dr. Jarvis. This doesn't concern you." Nicola's eyes flashed with anger as she said it did. She knew all about their unethical experiments and ruthless tactics. The breeders hesitated, clearly taken aback by Nicola's unexpected alliance. The leader's face twisted with fury. "You'll regret this," he hissed and signaled his men to advance. Ethan couldn't stay hidden any longer. He stepped out of the barn and stood beside Victor and Nicola. "You're not taking my foals," he said. The cable members faltered, unsure of how to proceed. The leader's confidence wavered. "This isn't over," he spat. "We'll be back." The waiting didn't last long. As darkness enveloped the farm, the sound of engines broke the silence. The black SUVs returned. Ethan's heart pounded. The breeders emerged from their vehicles. The leader stepped forward, his eyes locked on Ethan. "This is your last chance," he said coldly. "Hand over the foals, or we'll take them by force." But thankfully, Nicola had had the foresight to alert the authorities about a possible break-in, and the farm was swarming with hidden officers. About 10 minutes later, the local sheriff arrived. The dust settled around the barn as the last of the breeders were escorted away. Ethan stood with Victor and Nicola. They were exhausted, but their spirits were high. They had protected Will and Grace. In the days following the confrontation, the farm slowly returned to a semblance of peace. The authorities were now fully aware of the breeders and their intentions and provided additional security and support. One evening, as the sun set in a blaze of colors, Ethan reached out to stroke Grace's soft mane. Then he turned to Will, who nuzzled his hand with playful affection. "You too are special, not because of your ancestry, but because of who you are," he whispered. "You've brought something incredible into my life, and I promise to protect you always." As night fell, Ethan leaned against Emma. He felt the warmth of her body and the steady rhythm of her breath. The foals nestled close, their presence a comforting reminder of the miracles that could happen even in the most challenging times.